Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Paul Perdue, and I am a nerd, and you are attending the September 2013 PracticeMaster Virtual User Group meeting. Today we are going to talk about two things, as usual. Well, Mary Jo is going to talk about two things, but they're the same sort of thing. She's going to talk about conflict and contact searching, some of the intricacies of how that works, what the differences are, why you would use one over the other, all that sort of stuff. I am going to talk about the Related Contacts tab in PracticeMaster, which is kind of like our people file. So some of our clients never have seen the Related Contacts file or tab. They have just seen our people tab. Same thing, we're going to talk about how they might vary slightly. We like to think that as soon as we started doing the people tab, the people at STI took notice and came out with the Related Contacts tab because it's pretty much the same thing, just slightly different. So some of our clients, we have simply changed Related Contacts. Others we've simply put in our people file, and others may not have either because maybe they didn't want it or didn't know what it was, or maybe they got PracticeMaster before we started doing the people file. But anyways, I'll be talking about that. A little bit of housekeeping first. For those of you that don't know, this is your GoToWebinar control panel. Some of you may have already slid this out of the way, but if you're wondering how can I get that thing out of the way, it's this button right here that looks like arrows pointing to the right. If you click this button, it will slide this big box off of your screen so you can't see it, and the only thing remaining will be these buttons. Once you do that, this button will turn into one that looks like arrows pointing to the left, and you guessed it, you press it again, and it slides this back into place. Now, the only reason you'll need to slide it back into place is if you're shy, but you want to ask a question. So you can do that, type your question right here, and then don't forget, hit the send button. Leanne, our humble and alert moderator, will interrupt Mary Jo or myself at the appropriate time and ask your question for you. Please keep in mind that she will continue to ask your question for you as we are answering. So if we say something that you don't understand or that you want clarification on, just keep typing your follow-up questions here. Remember to keep hitting send when you're ready. Leanne will keep asking those follow-up questions until you've gotten your answer fully. So don't just ask your question. Be sure to, if you don't understand or need clarification, be sure to ask those follow-up questions. Or if you're not feeling shy and you're feeling instead rather bold today, then you can press this button that looks like a hand with an arrow pointing upward in front of it. That means raise your hand. Leanne will do the same thing. She will interrupt Mary Jo or myself at an opportune time. But this time, instead of reading your question for you, she will unmute your microphone and let you ask it yourself. Again, she will leave you unmuted until we've got your question answered. So if you have follow-up questions, just interrupt me or Mary Jo or whoever is talking and ask those follow-up questions. Make sure you get everything answered to your satisfaction. Now, without any further ado, I'm going to slide that out of the way, leave Mary Jo right here, and tell her it is her turn to talk about searching contacts and conflicts.
Good afternoon, everybody. Okay, contact and conflict searching. What is the difference? Usually, if you just want a down and dirty, fast, I just want to search out there for a contact name, an address, a phone number, a zip code, whatever it is that you want to search for, you can use the contact search. So we'll start there. And it just has one box, so it's easy to just type in what you're looking for. And you've got two options down here for your search parameters. You can match the partial words and do a starts with or contains, or you could do just a phonetic search. So I'm going to do a search for white because I am in my sample data and I know that there is a Kelly White out there. And just by typing in that and doing my search, it's going to give me a list and a nice little report over here of all of the instances that it found white. And I can see here that this first hit, as I would call it, is Kelly White, and it's a client contact. And here she is, Kelly White. I also have her listed in a last will and testament screen. I have her down here as a client name, and I've also got her on the Medicare of Brianne as a client name as well. So on all these different matters, I can see that I found this white hit. And you can see as I hover over her name, I can also drill down into that instance. I can come over to the actual client and look at her. So once I have this report in front of me on my screen, I can click down to further see if this is the actual contact that I was looking for. So I'm going to click on White on this first one because it found her name out here. And it took me right to her contact record, and I can see that this is Kelly Ann White, and I can decide if this is the right Kelly Ann White that I was looking for. If I had typed in a phone number or a zip code or something like that, I would have a multiple version list of this, of all of those instances. Or if I had typed just Smith, you know, a lot of people have a lot of Smiths at their place. So you can further refine that search by, you know, if I did a /Kelly, it would just give me just those instances of Kelly White. So you can limit this list down here, but this is all I have. I just have the one box and just the few parameters here. So it's just a very quick search that I can do to find some information. Now, in contrast, if I look at the conflict search, I have a lot more options here. I still have my box, but then I have a box that I can do a phrase match, and I can do either it must match at least one word or all the words. I can do a word order, so then I can go ahead and further narrow down what I want to see here. I still have my search options for matching partial words and phonetic search, but I also can search in World Docs and do a World Docs conflict search. So if you're integrating with World Docs, I can also go further and actually search that information. And then down here at the bottom, I've got a box that has all kinds of different modules within PracticeMaster that I can search. So I could go into the client file, the contact, the journal, calendar, fee, cost, area of practice files. I can even go into the document management file. I can search email attachments and linked documents. So I can do all of these right out of the box and do a full search of everything. Or I can pick and choose, and if I only wanted to find one particular calendar record, or I know I typed something in a document that I want to look for, or I have an email attachment, I can uncheck all these other boxes and search just those parameters. Now, a lot of people ask me, why should I save documents into World Docs? And the number one reason that I tell them is that then they are text searchable over here in PracticeMaster through this conflict of interest search. So it makes it very helpful to locate that document right through PracticeMaster, a certain phrase in that document or whatever that you're looking for. So that linked document then becomes searchable through here. So very, very comprehensive on what it can and cannot search here. You get very particular on what you're looking for. So that is the difference between the two. And the other big thing people like is the email attachments, because if you're journaling your emails into PracticeMaster, again, you can search through those email attachments and you can find a specific phrase or person or word. And these will print. You can print the report after it's done, so that gives you a conflict of interest search that you can put in the file if this is a true conflict, or you can't represent that person because of that. They were something else on another file. You can find all that information right through here very easily, and it's stored right in here. Any questions? No questions. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Paul.
Great. One thing that we promised to explain was why this is more complete than tabs. And I think it's kind of obvious. Tabs has your fees, and tabs has your clients and contacts, but it doesn't have other people that may be related to the matter, not as a client. Maybe their name doesn't show up in a fee. It doesn't have all the extra information the PracticeMaster does. It doesn't have the ability in tabs to search your World Docs documents or your documents stored in PracticeMaster. So that name that you're searching for, if you're using tabs, would have to show up in a fee entry, or it'd have to be a client or in the contact file, which is a little less likely to happen over on that side than it is on this side. I use this all the time. I'm always checking off a task as complete that I didn't really mean to check off, and for me the quickest way to get back to it is to just come into conflict search and search for the words that were in the task. It's easier for me than changing my view to show completed items and going to the bottom to look through the things I checked off today. It's just easier to type in what I need and find it here. We have some clients that use it to find people by Social Security number. That way you'll find, and you can do just the last four with a dash 9217, and it'll find it at that occurrence. Of course, that might be somebody's phone number too, but there are different ways to make that happen. So we have people looking for all sorts of things in conflict of interest search, and the most common misconception is that it's only for conflict of interest searching, and it's not. It's just that's what they happen to call it because it looks at everything. Very useful way to search for things. I'm going to talk about related contacts, kind of the same thing, kind of along the same lines, because usually when you're doing a conflict search, you're looking for people, and if those people are in there, then you're likely to find them. And what I mean by that is we have this ability in PracticeMaster to tag people to matters. So if we go into the client screen here, for instance, and pull up Michael Larson's, let's go to Larson versus Belcour, and we have, now I left both of these tabs here because this tab is an example of our people file. Now this is a very busy version of our people file, I will admit, but it allows us to tag people to matters and identify what role they play. That's the same thing that the related contacts does, only it doesn't have quite as much information in it, and a lot of implementations of our people tab don't have that much information either. If we go into related contacts, we'll add a new one, and we have the ability to say on the Michael Larson, Larson versus Belcour case, Bill Perdue is the opposing counsel, and he's a jerk. Okay. Now, whether or not you'd put that here or in the contact file is probably arguable, because if he's a jerk, he's going to be a jerk for every matter that he's tied to. But that gives me an opportunity to talk about the difference between the two. Bill Perdue is in the contact file because when I typed his name, this is a link to the contact file, we found his record from the contact file. Okay. Bill Perdue may be opposing counsel on 17 different matters that I have going. So he's going to have a one contact record, and then this related contacts file is going to be used to link him to all the different matters that he's tied to. Here we've used it to link him to this matter as opposing counsel. He might even take different roles in different matters that he's being linked to. For instance, maybe Bill Perdue is co-counsel in 2 matters. He happens to be opposing counsel on 1 matter. Maybe he also is a mediator, so he might be a mediator on a 4th matter. And maybe he's also an expert witness on patent trademark prosecution. So maybe he's also an expert witness on that 5th matter. One contact record, right here. Here it is. One contact record for Bill Perdue. It doesn't have his information in it, it's sample data. One contact record being linked with 5 different related contacts records or files to 5 different matters. One establishes his link to this matter as opposing counsel. One establishes his link to this matter as co-counsel. One establishes his link to this matter as an expert witness. One establishes his link to this matter as a mediator. Now, when we look at our people file, as opposed to this related contacts that comes out of the box from STI, one thing that you'll see is that we have a lot more information in here. For one thing, we pull a lot of the information through from the contact file to this screen. That does not have to be that way. It's entirely up to you. We also have the ability, since we're pulling in medical providers or perhaps expert witnesses or people that are being deposed, or mediators or employees in employment cases, we have the ability to put information in this record that is specific to this person as they relate to this matter. So you might have a doctor, Dr. Smith, and he is an expert witness on this matter, so he's not a medical provider in that case. And we might have another matter where he's a medical provider, and so in that matter, when we link him up, we can identify who the patient was, when we sent the request for the non-party documents, when we received them, when we scanned them, the type of treatment, the illness or condition. A lot of people have a people file that looks much like this related contacts file, much more simple. One thing I do like to see is I like to see a little bit more information so you don't have to drill down to that 3rd level to get his telephone number or his email address. Okay, let me pick somebody different who might have some information here. Let's say that Lauren Peterson is opposing counsel, or Lauren Phillips is opposing counsel. There we go. We have a little bit of additional information, phone number, address, no email address. Now, another thing that we like to do, and I'm going to sneak into another system real quick and show you this. This is the snapshot for this matter. We can customize this snapshot. We're going to talk about this in a future virtual user group meeting. And so we have actually done that for certain clients. And it's something that we can do very easily with either the people file or with the related contacts file. Let me just sneak in here real quick. And show how that works or how that looks. So if we go to this people file, and we look at, this charging party, here we have a snapshot that has fully blockable addresses, shows all the email addresses when we have them, shows all the addresses, shows all the phone numbers when we have them filled in, without having to dig down. So that's an important part of why sometimes we don't include all that information down here, because we don't need, if we have the proper snapshot, if we have that information out here, we don't need it when we dig down. We don't need to dig down here, and we certainly don't need to dig down to that third level. Okay, so sometimes this information will appear here, and sometimes this information doesn't need to because it appears here. But by having a People tab or a Related Parties, Related Contacts tab like this, you're able to see at a glance for any matter that you may pull up who the people are that are tied to the matter. Let me find another one that's got people. Maybe Mr. Larson is the only one that's got people here. And be able to see their telephone number, their email address, be able to get that information right there without having to look up that person someplace else. You don't have to pull out your phone. You don't have to pull up your email program just to know what their email address is. You don't have to go someplace else to see what their address is. You can pull up the matter, instantly see who the co-counsel is, who the opposing counsel is, the judge, the adjuster, the expert witness, the accountant, anybody. Now, something else about this related contacts screen, if you're going to use the one that comes out of the box with PracticeMaster, we have a drop-down. I'm sorry, I didn't mean for that. We have a drop-down to identify how they're related, but the one that comes out of the box from PracticeMaster is very limited. Keep in mind, you can add to this. You can put whatever, how related, or we call them roles sometimes, we can put whatever you want in there. Another thing that's important to know about the way it comes out of the box from PracticeMaster is that you could put something in here that's not there. Instead of opposing counsel, you could put other attorney. Okay? Now, I don't like that. The reason I don't like that is that if you don't lock this down to the box, to the drop-down of the choices that you've already made, and make the proper choices available, then anybody can put anything that they want in there. They can spell things wrong. They can call things that are the same different things. That makes it very difficult later on to act on that data. So we do recommend that if you do use the Related Contacts tab as it comes out of the box with PracticeMaster, that you do go in and you lock down this list and you make sure it's got all the roles or all the how related fields filled in, ready to go, and that when the time comes that you need another one, you simply add it to the list, and that you do lock it down so people can't put their own words in there. So to summarize, this is a good way to take your people that are already in your contacts file and link them to multiple matters, sometimes with the same role, sometimes with different roles, so that when you go into a matter, you have all the information about them at your fingertips without having to go someplace else to look them up.
And Paul, I'm just going to add that this is also a good place. Normally, when you're adding people to your case on the other tabs, you have a field like out on the court tab or somewhere else for maybe opposing counsel. And by putting it into the how related or into the people file, you can put multiple opposing counsels in here and keep them all on one screen instead of having to go into all those multiple screens.
That's an excellent point. Yeah.
I'll let you continue with that, Paul.
Because that is the way it used to be. It used to be that you had a place to put the opposing counsel, a place to put co-counsel. That still comes out of the box that way, and we recommend that you get away from that and that you store everyone in the People tab, because then you can have multiple opposing counsel. You can have multiple co-counsel. You can have multiple anything when it's appropriate. And it makes it easier to report on the information, and it makes it easier for us or for you to code documents that pull that information. If you're storing medical providers over here with one variable in one place, and you're storing opposing counsel over here in another place and co-counsel over here, in order to just create a letter that you'd be able to write to anybody, you'd have to have one for medical providers, one for co-counsel, one for opposing counsel, because you're pulling the fields from a different place. Here, they're all coming from the same file, this People file, this How Related file, or Related Contacts file, that allows you to have them all in one place, all in one screen. Makes it easy for the attorneys, too, to simply go to one place and say, I know this is the tab that I'm going to click on to get a list of everyone that's tied to this case, instead of them having to know this is where the medical providers are, this is where the co-counsel is, this is where opposing counsel is.
And lastly, that also shows up on Matter Manager, so that if they're, attorneys are usually living over in Matter Manager, and so if you have any people tied or any how related tied to the case, they also show up over there right on the left-hand side, and Paul's taking you over there.
Yep.
So you can see all of the contacts that are under those two, or you would have one, people or how related. But those all show up over here as well. And the other really good thing is you can just add a contact right there instead of having to go find those screens or tabs to find out where is that opposing counsel or where is that expert witness tab. You can just add it right there on the how related or on the People file.
All in one place, all in one easy-to-find place where everybody's listed. Exactly. Leanne, do we have any questions on this?
Nope, no questions.
Okay. Well, a couple things to mention before we sign off. First off, our topics for next month. We're going to talk about snapshots, which is what I just kind of gave you a very brief glimpse into, how we can customize those screens of information that appear at the bottom of lists to be very user-friendly, to show you all the phone numbers, all the addresses in a blockable format, to show you everything there is to know about that person that you're highlighting on the list above without having to drill down into the information to find it. We're also going to give you a quick 15 to 20-minute primer on how to use the PracticeMaster Report Writer. Sometimes people go in there and kind of turn on their heels and run when they see these different screens that don't make any sense to them. There's a lot of power in there. We're going to try and give you just enough of an understanding of what goes where and how that works so that you can create a simple report and get in there without running away when you see how all the options that you have and all the complexity that sometimes can scare people away. I also wanted to mention that version 17 is about to come out in a pre-release form. We have been playing with it for about a week now. It is very cool. There's some very neat stuff in there. We will be talking about that in a couple months at a virtual user group meeting. But for those of you who want to get a glimpse right now, there is still room to be what's called a pre-release tester, which is a euphemism for beta tester. I will tell you that STI releases beta products, beta testing versions, if you will, that are more solid, more reliable, and more stable than most other people's regular releases of software. We have been using version 17 in our real-time production environment for about a week and haven't had a single problem that would cause us any trouble. So if you want to be kind of the first kid on the block to see PracticeMaster version 17 or tabs or the accounting software, all you need to do is send an email to beta@tabs3.com. If you have questions about it, you can call STI, but you're also certainly welcome to call or email me. I'd be happy to answer any questions about being a beta tester. Or if you just want to do it or find out what forms you need to submit to do it, just send a quick email to beta@tabs3.com. Let them know that that's something you'd like to do. So if there are no more questions, without any further ado and all that other jargon, everybody have a good afternoon. We'll see you next month. Bye-bye.